We appreciate you so much for joining us. It's hour 2 of the program. Don't forget, it's a Monday. That means we'll be with you, I should say, for 2 hours. It's SuperTalk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews at 12:05. But right now, it's Grant Callen, founder and CEO of Empower Mississippi. So, Grant, you were just telling me that you heard me go off on a bit of a rant there about just the economy in the country and the just broad opportunities that we all have in front of us. It's just a matter of just picking yourself up by the bootstraps and taking advantage of that. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, I thought it was a great segment, and the thought I wanted to add was simply that through the history of the world, slavery, tyranny, hardship was just kind of commonplace, and the station you were born into was the station you died into. And if you were born in poverty, that's where you'd spend your life. You were born in the middle class, you got lucky. Or you're born in the aristocrat, you got lucky and you did better. The thing that was so radical about the Declaration of Independence and this experiment with freedom was where you're born is not where you have to stay. And you're exactly right. The middle class is shrinking, and it's because more people are moving into the upper class. And the thing that's so dramatic and so revolutionary about what we've seen in recent history is that there is opportunity in America. And I would say in the last few years, we've seen incredible opportunity in Mississippi, that you don't have to stay where you are. There is opportunity for people to climb. And that seems so like common sense to us because we're Americans and we've lived here all our life, and you started a company here. But that's a pretty radical idea when you think about the history of human civilization. Being able to climb out of your station and achieve something better than your parents or grandparents did is a incredibly radical idea.
No doubt about it. Why do you think so many on the left? I got started on this because of a video that I viewed published by Senator Slotkin of Michigan. And she says that the shrinking middle class is an existential threat to the country. But that ignores the reality of, the middle class is shrinking because more people are moving out of the middle class upward more so than the people that are even moving from the lower classes are into the middle class. So, it is shrinking the middle class, though there are more people growing out of the lower classes to the middle class, far more going from the middle class to the upper class. It almost feels like they can't accept that people are able to improve their situation without government.
Right, because government didn't create a program that pulled people out of poverty. The program that has pulled people out of poverty is free trade and free market economics. And it is the number one most successful global poverty program in the history of the planet. That free markets, free trade, capitalism, the ability that you can make a product, that you can have property rights, that government doesn't just hand you property rights. Property rights come from God, and government exists to protect those, has created more wealth for everybody. And in fact, the number, the percentage of people across the planet that are living on, $2 a day has increased dramatically over the last 50 years. So I think that's what the left often forgets is that, I'd say two things. One, they forget that just because the markets produce that's not something. They don't want to celebrate it simply because it didn't come from the top down. It came from the bottom up. But I think the other thought is, it's not to say that the opportunity and the access to opportunity has always in America been universal or it's been equally accessible. There are we haven't always been perfect in that. There are people and there are races that in this country have had more opportunity than others. But what you can see throughout our history is progress and tremendous progress. And even people in this country that we would say are in the lowest class, that are in poverty, they are doing better. Their quality of life is better than they would have been 60, 70 years ago. And that's progress. That doesn't mean our work is done. You said that. It means we've got to continue to fight for opportunity for everybody. And really, that's what our work at Empower is about, is making sure opportunity doesn't just exist for those that are in the upper class. We got to make sure opportunities exist to everybody, whether that's a great education, whether that's work, rebuilding your life after prison. But you're right. Opportunity is out there if people are willing to take hold of it.
Yeah. And we should distinguish between equal opportunity and equity of outcomes like this, so that's
100%.
Right.
And I think that's fundamentally where conservatives and progressives differ, where progressives often want to see equality of outcome. And it's just a misunderstanding of human nature to think that government could do that anyway. If you were to level the playing field today, which I'm not recommending, but taking from the rich and giving to the poor and leveling everybody, in 5 minutes it would be unlevel.
Yeah. Because
some people would invest their money, some people would spend it, some people would build a company, some people wouldn't. So what we can't do equality of outcome. That's never been possible. What we can do is equality of opportunity, which is give people access to a fair judicial system, a equitable education system, give people the tools to work hard, take bets, make investments, open companies. There is a lot of work to do to get government out of the way. Let's reduce the red tape and the regulation that stands in the way of people opening a company. Let's make sure that every kid in our state has access to a great education. That's not always been done. It's not being done today. But we've made tremendous progress, and that's certainly worthy of celebrating.
And we have to recognize that. I mean, and again, it doesn't mean, okay, we're done, stop, job complete. Not that. Nobody's suggesting that. But you also have to take stock in the fact that, as you pointed out, even the poor in this country, we don't want anybody to be poor. Let's be honest.
Right.
We want everybody to thrive and to be economically successful. But there's better off than the middle class to the wealthy in other countries by orders of magnitude. I mean, the things that in this country we just take for granted would be reserved, like having a flat screen TV and a cell phone, a washer and a dryer, you name it, all the modern conveniences that we're accustomed to, a roof over your head, as an example, and food to eat. We've got pretty dang good safety nets and very charitable people that ensure that, whereas in other countries, they're literally looking for a roof over their head, something to put on their body, and food to eat 24 hours a day.
And I think for some, our commitment to helping people in poverty, they measure that purely by the amount of money you put into government programs and how accessible those are.
Yeah.
And I would say you and I know the best, most productive quality of life things happen when people earn their own success.
No doubt.
And that's not to say we don't have a safety net program for people who are disabled, who are unable to earn their own success, but that can't be the norm. The norm ought to be, let's create a landscape where everybody who wants to achieve the American dream can do it. And that means using your God-given gifts. That means finding a way to create value in your community or in the economy, using your God-given gifts to produce value in a product or service that other people want. And when you do that, people build a life of purpose and meaning, and it's not something that was handed to them that they could lose tomorrow if Congress decides to slash benefits. It's something they built, and they can be really proud of, and they can invest and save money and hand it off to the next generation.
Well said. It feels like the impediment to that, however, are people like Senator Slotkin and many others on the left, as you say, that always look to government programs as the solution. And they're constantly promoting this message, this narrative, this rhetoric that you're just the deck stacked against you, and it's all because of these group of people, whatever, or these sort of politicians. And they have come to accept, I guess, that government's going to come to their rescue and their aid, and they're going to thrive on that rather than on their own.
Well, and I know we're coming up on a break, but I'll just say, it used to be real clean cut what the right believed and the left believed. The right doesn't always believe and defend this stuff well either. And there's a lot of folks on the right that would claim to be conservative that aren't standing up for free markets and free trade and all those things.
We got to clean that up. We got Grant Callen, founder and CEO of Empower Mississippi. When we come back, we'll talk about a key education provision in the big, beautiful bill. Stay with us. CEO is Grant Callen, founder and CEO of Empower Mississippi. So enjoyed that discussion and totally agree with you. And you're right that we have some people on the right, Republicans, and we don't want to call attention to any particular people, but in general, we got a little work to do to get them to think more like good free market capitalists as well. And maybe it's the bug of government. Sometimes they get involved in government, and that's your tool. I mean, that's what you have available to you is more government. And you think about solving problems with government where the opposite's usually the best solution.
And I think just because free markets are not perfect,
sure,
and we have had financial problems. Are you thinking about the housing crisis, or there have been? That doesn't mean because the free markets aren't perfect that we throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Right. And
there are some that are so quick to say, we got to move past free markets. We got to move past free trade. We got to move to other, and it's not that these things have tried and failed. It's that they've often tried and we gave up on them too quick.
Yeah. So let's turn our attention to the president's signature legislation signed into law, the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, on July 4th, fittingly, I think, included a provision that's not getting quite the attention that many of the others are included in the legislation. But this involves a tax credit, $1,700 tax credit for individuals who contribute to a fund administered by private organizations that would then grant scholarships, if you will, to students to use those funds to attend private school. This is something that's brand new. This is not like a federal scholarship or a federal voucher. It's just a tax credit if you contribute. So talk about that.
Well, so it is the school choice provision that was in that bill, and it's something that the president has championed and a lot of education groups has championed. But it's important to mention, so school choice really is a state issue because we don't want the federal government handing out ESAs or vouchers or stuff like that. Most of education funding comes from the states. But this was a way for the federal government to lean into something that I think is within their role that is important. So it's a tax credit. It's not a tuition tax credit, which would be actually to families who are paying tuition and some kind of credit on their taxes.
Yeah.
And it's not a school tax credit, kind of like the Children's Promise Act in Mississippi. You mentioned it. It is a credit for people who donate to scholarship granting organizations.
SGOs, they call them.
SGOs.
Yeah.
And the idea is that if you can make it a lot more compelling for people to donate to these SGOs, many that already exist, and we could talk about some of those, or I'm certain there'll be new ones created. Mm-hmm. They will have a lot more money. They will be able to donate to kids who can't afford private school tuition. And so it's kind of a interesting way to incentivize people, the private landscape, private philanthropers, really just ordinary Americans, to donate to these scholarship granting organizations so then they can help low-income kids afford private school. So some of the mechanics of this, states have to opt in. By our reading of the bill, it looks to us like the governor can opt in. There's some debate about whether the legislature has to opt in or the governor. It looks to me like it's just the governor would have to do it. So I'm sure there'll be some states that do not participate. It is a $1,700 cap on each individual that can contribute
per year.
Per year, that's right. So you're not going to grow. This is not going to grow overnight. It's going to take a lot of donors across a state or really across the country to contribute to a pot that then would be able to give money out to kids. Now, one of the requirements on the scholarship granting organization is they can only give these scholarships to students in a family that is up to 300% of the federal poverty level.
No, it's actually the median income of the area.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not the federal poverty level. It's the median, but that it's a little different calculation. But just wanted to clarify that. And
the
that's
intent is to focus on
right.
low-income kids.
That's the main point.
Right.
Yeah. So
it's not about serving, you hear all the time, well, school choice is about wealthy kids already in private school.
Yeah.
No, this is about helping the kids that need it but can't afford it.
yeah, that's right.
So I think I think this is something that is going to take a couple of years to really we'll see develop. It doesn't even come online until 2027. So we got next year to work on this.
Yeah.
But I think it's a way to help kids across the country that want to get into a private school that can't afford it to do so.
But in your reading of the bill, you think maybe the governor of a state can just opt into it without necessitating legislative approval. That would be a big deal in Mississippi.
Yeah, there's a provision that talks about the governor could do it, or an entity that is usually responsible, I'm paraphrasing, for opting into federal programs.
Okay.
So I'll let the attorneys figure out who can actually do it. But I'm certain we have a governor who will support it, and I think our legislature would support it as well.
Okay.
Now, but let's be clear, this is not a replacement for some of the work that I know House and Senate leaders are working on right now on school choice.
Right.
This is good. It's important. I think it's a tool in the toolbox. It will be helpful. It's going to take a long time before it really ramps up and actually helps a meaningful number of kids, whereas some of the proposals that lawmakers are considering would help kids on day one.
Yeah. Yeah, so a school choice program, a robust school choice program in the state of Mississippi that would allow state funds to follow the student to their setting of choice is a different matter than an SGO that provides a scholarship to those who apply for it using the monies contributed from individuals who get the $1,700 credit.
That's right. And there are some states that already provide a state credit for contributions to these scholarship granting organizations. Louisiana does that. Georgia does that. And Alabama does that actually too. And they have some great organizations that have that administer that and administer they're these SGOs. So I think we could see some of those organizations grow into other states. I think some would be interested in coming into Mississippi. I think there'll be some homegrown people here that would probably want to start a scholarship granting organization. And you could have it. There's no limit in the number of scholarship granting organizations that could participate.
Right.
I think one of the provisions is the governor has to list which are the authorized scholarship granting organizations.
Okay.
So you could have a list, but Alabama already has multiple organizations that do this for their state credit, and now you'll have this federal credit on top of to kind of further incentivize contributions. So I think it's a great thing. It is certainly going to help more kids afford private school, and we just need to make sure we get it approved, opted in for Mississippi, and then start working with whoever wants to start these scholarship granting organizations to make sure that they're set up well and the money gets to the kids. One of the provisions is 90% of the money has to go to scholarships.
Right.
So you can't spend a bunch of it on overhead.
Administration, right. Let's talk about the status of the charter school program in the state of Mississippi. Empower, of course, heavily involved in policy around that. What's the status now? How many charter schools do we have?
Yeah, so there are 10 that are up and running, and there are 2 more that have been authorized but have not opened yet.
Okay.
And I'll just tell you, for folks who are listening, if you haven't been to tour one of these, I highly recommend it. It's kind of hard to understand what a charter is until you just walk in the door and you see what they're doing. The landscape has grown a lot slower, as I know you know and our audience knows. It's grown slower than we wanted. One of the provisions for that is that to open a charter, you have to be in a district rated D or F. That's on the state's accountability model, A, B, C, D, or F. And as more and more districts have, really, I think some of that is inflation, where we only, out of 140 school districts, there are only 3 districts in the state now that have
D or F.
a D or F.
Yep.
That has meant it's very hard for people to open charters today.
Yep.
But you should go look at the charters that exist. Ambition Prep is one. So the last charter I was in their building a couple of weeks ago. D. Archie Scott is the head of school there. That is over on Clinton Boulevard in a high poverty part of the state, part of the city of Jackson. And they're just serving kids every day, and their kids are thriving. They're a B-rated school. Kids are coming out. They're being prepared for life. They're doing great things. They have a waiting list to get in. They're growing every year. They're going to be adding more grades. They're working to add a high school. It's a great opportunity. And as I talked to D. Archie, who's the head there, he said, look, for us, this has never been about being against public school. We are a public school. This is about serving kids that maybe were on the verge of dropping out, or kids that needed a little something different, and they're doing it. And I think they're 400 and something kids now. They're growing up to 700
At
kids.
Ambition Prep?
At Ambition Prep.
Wow.
So it's huge.
I had no idea.
They're big.
That is awesome. We're back with you in the Element Well studio with Grant Callen, founder and CEO of Empower Mississippi. So we had a little glitch there in the technology, and we're cut off, but we were talking about Ambition Prep. And you mentioned that their enrollment is over 400.
I just looked it up, 472 kids.
That's impressive.
That's the current year. So my expectation is they will grow for the fall and then continue to grow. I think their goal is to get to mid 700s by the time they add a high school.
Wow, that's incredible. And this is in West Jackson off Clinton Boulevard, and that's just amazing. So I recall, I told you on the break, I grew up not far from there off of Bowling Street. Used to have friends in that area, ride my bike around there and stuff. But there was a public elementary school right near there, the intersection, called Rains, and it's no longer there. So I would argue that this school opening up right there is kind of a godsend, because that means those kids that typically went to Rains, that lived close to Rains, now have to travel a little further to get to the nearest public school that might be open. But they have this option if they can get on board at a charter school. And again, tell our audience, Grant, that charter schools are, in fact, public schools. They're not private schools, as is widely believed. Explain that.
They are public schools. They simply are independent of the district. They are held accountable just like a public school. They have to take the same state test that traditional public schools have to take. They are funded like a public school. These are tuition-free schools. So students they choose to come to a charter school, and then the charter funding, the public school funding follows the student, and they get paid based on the number of kids that come. So if they, like in this case, Ambition has 472 kids, they are getting funded the per student amount for 472 kids
from the state. From the state,
correct. But they're getting state and local. I think the way the funding flows, it comes from the state, but they get the same amount. So they are funded the same way. They get 97% of what the traditional public
because
school
they're a
would get.
public school.
That's right. They're a public school. And look, this is just one example. There are 6 charter schools in Jackson. Ambition Prep is one. Midtown Public Charter School is another. I'm looking at the numbers. As of the current semester, there are 2,783 kids in the city of Jackson in a charter school. And it has really been extraordinary. Not that every kid needs to go to a charter. The goal is not to replace traditional public, but it's to give families a choice, give families an option where they might want to try something different. And D. Archie Scott is the head of school at Ambition that we started talking about, and he's extraordinary. He's an entrepreneur. He's an educator by trade who said, I want to use my gifts to educate more kids, and I want to have the freedom to do it outside the traditional public school sector. In fact, I have you should have him on. I had him on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, and we had a long interview with him. And he's just a great innovator, and he's figured out how to help kids achieve great things, even in an incredibly high-poverty part of the state.
And you indicated that they have a waiting list. Is that right?
They do.
Right now.
They do.
So the fact that they have 472 students, now these are students that could attend the public school that they're attached to. They've chosen to enroll in this school. And the fact that enrollment stays high like that, and they got a waiting list, they must be doing something right.
And they could go back tomorrow if they weren't getting pleased.
Right.
I asked D. Archie, I said, charters have there's all this sort of political baggage that comes with the word charter, I said, how do you experience that? What do your families think about this school? And he said, they don't even know this is controversial. He's like,
I bet that's right.
They just see this bright, clean, safe, high-achieving charter school in a high-poverty community, and they're just grateful. He's like, we don't get involved in politics. He said, and maybe that's part of the challenge of charters at the Capitol, is that charters are just doing their job, educating kids, and they're not spending time on politics, spreading the good word. But it's been life-changing for these kids.
That's awesome.
And that's why they want to add a high school, so that the kids don't have to go back to a traditional public high school, but they can stay with these kids all the way through the end of their high school experience.
So one of the challenges, as you pointed out, is that charter schools in Mississippi can only locate in D and F districts. We have, 142 districts, 3 of which are now D and F. So the only options for new charter schools to form up would be in those 3 districts.
Yeah, and we're basically just stagnant. There is not. We're in the middle of a charter application cycle, and there are 0 applicants right now, simply because there's no place for you to go.
So there's an effort to expand that to, we like to have it available in any district regardless of their grade, but at a minimum add the C districts to that. But that's been met with some resistance in the state Senate.
It has, and let's be honest, it's not just the state Senate. It passed the House, but it was a close vote.
You're right.
It was a tough vote.
Yeah. Speaker favors it, though.
He absolutely does. I think he favors, let's create opportunity for kids everywhere.
Yeah.
And charters are a big part of that. My word to the legislature would be, let's find a way to allow charters to open in more communities. They've been a godsend to the communities where they are. They've been great for the city of Jackson. There's one in Greenwood. There's one in Clarksdale. There's one in Canton. There's one in Natchez. As I mentioned, there are 2 more that have been approved in the Delta to open. There are just more communities that need them. And we got to find a way to allow charters to open in more communities. And you were asking me about Embark. Embark is a program we started to come alongside people that want to start schools. So it's a nonprofit that serves school founders across Mississippi. If you want to start a charter school or if you want to start a private school, we want to help you get your school idea off the ground. And we have a pipeline of people that are talented, interested in opening charters, that some of them are educator by training, some of them are parents, some of them are business-minded people. There's simply nowhere for them to go because there's only 3 districts in the state you can open. So we'd love to see that open up. And, one of the things that hasn't been done, but I'd love to see happen, is charters don't have to just open. If they got permission from a school district, they could open anywhere. So I would love to see school districts not see this as a threat, but see this as something they could partner with and maybe provide an industry-specific model. Maybe you want to do a career technical education school, or maybe you want to do a pre-med school, or maybe you want to do something else. You could do that in conjunction with the district, and that's not limited today. That wouldn't even require legislation. You could do that today if you got permission from the district to open.
Marquee legislation passed in the past session that will phase out the income tax in the state of Mississippi. Empower was involved in that effort, advocated very strongly for that, finally got that across the finish line. Why is this important in the state of Mississippi?
Oh, it's incredibly important, and it took real courage to get it done. There are 9 states that don't have an income tax that are thriving economically. Aside from Alaska, none of those states ever had an income tax. Alaska's the only one that ever successfully eliminated it, and they struck oil. So they had some advantages. Literally. To some advantages to their economy to eliminate it. I'm really proud of the leadership it took on both sides of the Capitol to get this done, and the governor leading the charge for this, because it was a prudent, methodical, I think wise way to phase it out. We didn't flip a switch and pull the rug out. We said, a third of the state budget is made up on income tax, so we need to phase that out over a number of years. This plan will do that. And I think you will start to see Mississippi continue to be a place where capital wants to come and people with capital want to come. And I mean, just even the last couple of years, as we've started stepping down the income tax and making other changes, we've seen Mississippi become a magnet for economic development. I think this is just going to expedite that process, and it's really going to put Mississippi in a new category. There's a lot of states working on this, a lot of states trying to get rid of their income tax. We're the first state who did it, put the win on the board, and it's worth celebrating, worth crowing about.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Other states are taking a hard look at this, and Mississippi got it done. It's gotten national news as well, and people are taking notice. So we're leading in that respect, but we're a white space with respect to school choice, with all the states surrounding us enacting robust school choice legislation, the latest of which was Texas, which was a momentous victory. So
but
we got to get that done.
We're going to get there. I am confident we're going to get there. If you are listening and you want school choice, tell your legislator.
Yeah,
Let's
appreciate that. Grant Callen, founder and CEO of Empower Mississippi, the state's leading advocate for school choice and many other important issues as well. Appreciate it, Grant.
Thanks for having me on. Enjoyed it.
You got it. We're coming right back, folks, with a final segment. Stay with us.